Hi, I'm Kent. With my bigger kiln, I've been able to do a lot more pots recently. Since I've been slip casting them, that means I've been using my molds a lot more. Unfortunately, the few molds I have are showing some signs of deterioration. This isn't unexpected. As you use molds with slip casting, they do deteriorate over time. In this video, I'm going to show what that deterioration looks like and the effect it has on the pots. Alright, here are a few of my molds. These are my current molds that I've been using. You can still see some clay on the edges actually from when I was doing my mason stain experiments. I haven't cleaned it off yet. I also pulled out one of my original molds. This one I created using a 3D printer to get the interesting shape. So what does deterioration look like? If you look, you'll see there's these bubbles that have formed on the surface of the mold. Those were not there originally. So this is my oldest mold. You can see them there. You can see it in my newest mold as well. Down in the very bottom, there are these little pinholes. This mold has them too. There's actually some larger ones that have formed. Now, where did these come from? It's quite possible that some of these were in my original castings. I am still a novice in terms of making these plaster molds, so it is quite likely that they were there to start with. Over time, there's a chemical reaction that happens between the plaster and the slip as well. That will cause the molds to deteriorate. One of the things you'll also see is on the edge here, there's this white crusty stuff. So there's been something that's been leaching out of the clay into the plaster and then out of the plaster into the air. So there's this formation that's happened. I think that's related to the deterioration of the mold. So why is this a problem? Well, one is they're just kind of ugly. You wind up with a poor surface finish. Most of these are on the bottom, but there's actually some in the sides as well. And here, they're all in the sides. The other problem is it actually disrupts the slip casting process, in particular the releasing of the mold. With all of these little voids in here, the clay will seep into them, and you can still see that from my mason stains experiments, all these little darker dots are colored slip that are embedded in the walls. That means the clay is actually grabbing onto the pot in those places. In turn, that means the pot is not properly releasing from the mold, so it takes more effort to get them out. Basically, these are creating undercuts that make the pot hard to get out. So to show that in a little more detail, I'm going to do one last slip casting of these two molds. This one's long since been retired. I don't actually have the bottom anymore. Okay, I just mixed up my slip, so it's ready to go. And I have my two molds. Let's do a casting and I can show you what these defects look like. Okay, those are both full. Let's jump ahead in time, and the next step will be demolding them. These have released from the edge of the mold, so they should be good to come out. Let's see if I can actually get them out. As I said, this is one of the problems with these molds once they start to deteriorate. Ooh, it came. That's the first one. Let's see if we can get the second. Ooh, it also came. So here the defects are much more obvious. So these bubbles here correspond to the holes I was pointing out earlier in the bottom of the mold. So there's several of them. Some of these are defects in my original mold. So this one here is. All these little bubbles here are new. They were not there originally. These are pretty soft, so I don't want to pick them up, but you can also see the same problem around the edges. So that basically affects the surface finish of my pot. And there's some more here. There's a larger one there. So it's not the end of the world. I can clean these up. Once they get leather hard, I can, smooth these out, take off the little nubs, but it's less than ideal. One of the advantages of slip casting is that you can actually pull out parts that are in good shape. So it kind of defeats the purpose having to do a secondary pass to clean up a lot of the pot afterwards. So with that, I think it means I'm going to retire these two molds. The other reason I'm retiring this mold is that given the size of my kiln, these pots are just tiny now. I could probably put, a couple hundred in my kiln, and I don't need to make such tiny ones. This one I will probably redo or make something similar again. And since I'm retiring these molds, it means I need to make more, so stay tuned for another video about some mold making. I hope you found that interesting. If you have any questions about the molds or their deterioration, please leave a comment below. I'd be happy to answer it. Thanks.